Hello and welcome to the Crumbs on the Carpet podcast. I am Justin, joined by...
I'm Connor.
Barick.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart as far as a narrative or a sci-fi junkie. But before I start, I have a question for each of you. So, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Probability manipulation, because I feel like I could do whatever I want.
Because that's basically reality manipulation.
Yep.
Well, I would really enjoy having the ability to turn anything I touch into a bomb. Of course, controlled.
Damn.
Like Gambit?
More like...
Are you going to become like a school shooter thing? Or no, that's not...
No. More,
that's weird.
More like, I just turned your popcorn into literal popcorn.
Why?
Why?
Are you telling me you wouldn't want to blow someone's face
I would.
off?
Oh, no, I don't want to. No.
Well, we found out who's a psychopath in the room.
Yeah? Well, I mean, I really want to warp reality, so...
I guess for me, I'd say telepathy or telekinesis, because I really have always found psychic abilities fascinating, and I just think that would be neat to be able to do.
Okay, so I have to quickly do an aside here, because I told you and why, which tells you implicitly, give me reasoning, think about it. So, having to think about it, I would say force field manipulation. Force field generation and manipulation. Basically, being the invisible woman, only not invisible, because I don't really care about being invisible. My main reasoning for that is because I have 3 qualifications. For 1, it has to be versatile. For 2, it can't backfire, hopefully. And, well, yeah, like Barick.
I'd control it. I know I'd be able to put the force behind it.
And 3, I don't want it to have a high learning curve. So, reality manipulation, I don't want to go to sleep and then wake up and I'm in a completely different universe, because I completely shaped it with my dreams. I don't want to kill people randomly. Psychic powers, that has a high learning curve and can backfire on yourself. Plus, I don't want to know when you're thinking about gross stuff. I don't want to be like, ugh, gross.
No, it's like the... psychic reads my mind inside. It's just in the screaming and the silence, and the psychic's like, what?
That's why it's selective. Selective telepathy. Like selective hearing.
Now, the reason I bring up the implicit reasoning, the implicit request for you to think about it, because if I don't have time to think about it, my answer is always time travel. I was obsessed with time travel in high school, and I love time travel narratives.
Still kind of are.
I love time travel. It's cool as all get out.
It's a very wish fulfillment.
Yeah, I mean, it's naturally one of the biggest wish fulfillment ideas in pop culture and in human culture.
Well, that and flying.
Well, and flying, yeah. And sometimes teleportation.
Yeah.
But time travel.
But, yeah, it's just simply because of the fact it goes well with a person's regrets or curiosities. It's literally a shoulda, woulda, coulda, what would have happened.
I'm not gonna lie. My initial obsession with time travel began off making a stupid mistake in high school and being like, I'm a smart cookie. I can undo that, right?
Well, remember when we were kids, we'd make dumb decisions all the time, and we'd be like, if only I could go back time and not break your arm.
Sorry.
Now we find out who the true psychopath is.
It was on accident.
Or thinking about, I'm moving to Colorado soon, and the idea of if I had not gone, reversing that and being able to see what would have happened if I'd stayed here.
Well, everyone that knew you before thought you were dead.
Yeah. People thought I was dead in elementary school because I transferred.
If
they
you
told
could
people I had
turn that
cancer,
back.
and then I died. That was a problem.
Okay, so because time travel's near and dear to me, narratives that involve time travel are also something that quickly catches my attention. And it's no secret to some of my friends that one of my favorite superheroes is The Flash. So when they released a TV show in 2014 about The Flash starring Grant Gustin. Yes, I was all over it like white on rice. And season 1 was amazing. Season 2 was great. And then season 3 happened, where a lot of the problems in the show came about from what we're going to talk about here today, which is time travels in narratives. And this is going to be a reoccurring theme in this podcast. we're going to talk about a lot of like weird structures that are narrative structures, narrative plot points, and how they're used correctly and incorrectly. And today's, like I said, it's time travel. So the Flash, because of the nature of his powers, he's able to run faster than the speed of light in the comic books and thus go backwards in time, usually with the aid of like a weird machine, the cosmic treadmill. In this TV show, he apparently just creates wormholes and somehow gets there.
Sounds like
Plot.
fun.
Yeah, plot.
Oh no, he has plot armor.
That being said, the Flash is probably one of the worst examples of a time travel narrative. The way they've handled time travel since season 1, even though season 1 was great, was god awful. Those writers need to go somewhere else.
This feels like the power of plot, though.
And oftentimes, and if you go to any subreddit that discusses the Flash or any discussion of the Flash period, there are mentions of the Speed Force did it, which is another way of just saying because
The plot did it.
Yeah. So why is time travel so weird?
There's a lot of problems with it. Like, one thing that I've had discussions about is we have talked about, not me and you, but we've talked about how once you get to the point where you went back in time, you're going back in time at that point, and it's just a continuing loop. And at that point, it gets kind of more difficult to understand what's going on.
Murky.
Yeah.
So one thing I'd like to point out in terms of the weirdness of it is that each universe, whether it be Flash,
Even normal DC with Superman.
each way,
God.
yes, we're going to...
I'm gonna fly around the sun, around the Earth a million times at super speed and reverse the direction of the rotation.
Not gonna mess up our magnetic fields, I swear.
Or gravity.
Back to what I was saying,
They did the same thing in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody in one episode where they had superpowers.
Yep. Back to what I was saying. Don't make me giggle.
Sorry.
Don't make me giggle. Back to what I was saying is that each universe, or possibly in the same universe, there's different rules about how they're either time traveling the effects. There's a lot of times for each time travel in a different narrative, you have to learn the rules.
And we're gonna get to that.
What I'm saying though is it's a lot harder to understand.
It's weird because it's different for every
Everyone.
universe.
Yeah.
Or every part of the universe.
So, like, one of the reasons that, like, I personally have issues with time travel sometimes as a viewer, and Connor, you and I were literally just talking about it when we were talking about the prep for this. A bad writer will use it to undo their mistakes.
Like all of season 2 of Flash? It was season 2,
Oh,
right?
dude. Oh, no. Like, we're talking about the Flash spoilers, obviously. So, at the end of season 2, Barry's depressed. The Flash is depressed. So he decides, screw it, I'm gonna go back in time and save my mom who died because Reverse Flash was a jerk.
And it undoes the entire season.
Well, no, they do a weird thing with it. So it undoes the seasons, the first 2 seasons. Creates Flashpoint, which is an alternate universe, or an alternate timeline, not really a universe, where his mom lived until this point in time. And then, like, he realizes Flashpoint's not perfect like he thought it was, so he goes back in time and re-lets the Reverse Flash kill his mom. Which, let's not even get into the moral problems of that. Like, letting someone kill your mom.
Doesn't he just, like, run into himself, though?
Something like that. Well,
I'm gonna stop you.
At the end of season 1, he goes back in time, and he's going to save his mom at the very end of season 1, and he sees another future version of himself peek out of a door and go, shh, no, don't do this. And, like, he's like,
It's you, boy.
cool, I get it. I'm not gonna do this. I should just let her die. And he runs back to the present. But all this being said, like, bad writers will use it, or I forgot to finish the Flashpoint. He goes back in time after realizing Flashpoint isn't perfect. And as a result, the universe is kind of like reset in a weird way. It's convoluted, but there are a lot of issues with that. At the same time, time travel is literally one of the most powerful abilities you can give a character. Like, how do you make an enemy with that?
Well, I mean, you can make a lot of enemies. It's just, how do you fight against it?
It depends on, I would say, going back to which we will discuss, the rules. It's all about how the rules.
And I also think having it to where there's multiple people able to do it instead of just giving that one person that ultimate power. So, like I was telling you earlier, Dad watching Legends of Tomorrow, giving all of them that collective ability to use it it makes it a little easier to create a antagonist that can use it as well, or has their own means to be able to stop it.
Okay, so as Barick was trying to start a conversation on a second ago, one of the biggest things that a writer needs to do when creating a narrative in which time travel is a thing is thoroughly define the rules of time travel.
I do think that they need to at least look at other things, rules, just so they can try
Other
to make
narratives?
Yeah, just to try to make them more consistent, because they're not. The rules aren't consistent.
And you just use the key word twice in one sentence. Consistency.
So what you're saying is she's consistent with consistent.
My God, Barick.
So when it comes to defining rules, as a viewer or a purveyor of time travel narratives, I've come across a few simple classifications you can make. So the first classification is this story a single universe, or does it involve multiple universes?
When it involves multiple universes, though, that does make the rules a little bit more murkier, because you don't know which universe's rules we're following, and they're not consistent all the time.
Well, you've read it, Earth X,
Yeah.
the Marvel comic storyline. This was released back in the 90s, early 2000s, where it was basically, this is the end of the Marvel Universe that we're writing. We're basically writing the Marvel Universe 20 years from now. They reveal that every time someone time travels, it doesn't change the universe the person was native to. It just creates a branching timeline where this person is now transferred to. So you basically just created another universe by time traveling.
And I mean, if you want to do time travel, you still have to go to that in-between thing.
The limbo?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, in my opinion, multiversal time travel is the cleanest form of time travel, because the original timeline still exists, it's still intact, and here's the new timeline. And then you have mono-universal time travel, where it's all within one universe, and that's when the rules really get weird. So
And that's
I'm
when
assuming
you get your continuous loop.
Yeah, so I'm assuming we all know what the grandfather paradox is, right?
It goes on if a person travels back in time and kills their grandfather.
Before their parent was born.
Before their parent was born, yes. Before their parent was born, technically speaking, then the person who shot him shouldn't exist to shoot the grandfather, but
so the grandfather lives, but because the grandfather lives,
it's a paradox.
It creates this endless loop, and it's not consistent, and it's just terrible for the viewer. It's terrible for the writer to do something stupid like this. So, because of the nature of the grandfather paradox, there are two different attacks on this. There is the method in which the time traveler is removed from the timeline. So anything they change in the past, it just changes the past. It doesn't affect them.
There is an episode of Family Guy where they do kind of explain it, because they time traveled so much that they escaped the universe, and thus they ended up creating the universe.
Yeah.
Like that isn't confusing.
Yeah. The other method is and this is actually a real scientific concept, the CTC, or the closed time-like curve, in which the universe has already compensated for everything you will do in the past. So, say I move someone's cup. I go back in time, I steal Connor's, she's got a cup in front of her, I steal her cup. So the universe has a compensation to this, and I've already stolen it, someone has already found it, put it back on the table before she notices.
Thanks, Barick. You're a real pal.
Exactly. It's weird, it's hard to understand, but sure.
So I am the universe.
Now,
no,
narratives...
You're just the universe's puppet.
Oh.
Narratives get really murky when they do both of these. They imply that the person is removed from consequence, while simultaneously not removing them from consequence. So, after defining or talking about some of these rules, does anyone else have any rules, questions for what we're talking about here with time travel?
So, Captain America, he gets frozen, and he does technically travel through time.
Well, technically, you're traveling through time right now.
Okay, so the time around him technically isn't changing. I say around him loosely since he's frozen. You know what I mean?
It's a stasis.
Yeah, the time around him isn't moving at all, whereas fully around him, it's moving rapidly.
For example, Futurama, does that mean Fry went forward in time?
Well, technically he does time travel.
Technically. But for the point of this conversation, we're going to be talking about backwards time travel. So negative temporal displacement is what they refer to it as. So improper use of time travel. So this is when you don't define the rules, or you define the rules and you decide, a writer just randomly goes, you know what? I don't like the rules. I'm a writer. I can make new rules. Or it's just free for all.
Yeah, he just takes the rules out back.
Like, there are rules that should stay defined mostly, but writers do like to throw those out the window.
So when I talk about improper time travel use, I'm going to go back to The Flash, since that's where we're started here. So in Season 1 of The Flash, they imply that, because the main villain of Season 1 is Eobard Thawne. He's a future enemy of the Flash, nicknamed the Reverse Flash. He has the exact same powers, but he's had them for so much longer, so he's more experienced with them. Apparently, he travels back in time and kills Barry Allen's mom. Implying he was trying to kill Barry Allen in the past before he becomes the Flash, but finds out that he can't because his. Actually, they don't in the show. I don't even think they imply that he can't. In the comic books, he can't because they're linked for some reason. Because he can't become the Reverse Flash if the Flash doesn't exist.
Well, it's the whole thing with the Speed Force.
Yeah, Speed Force. It's a plot device. But so they imply that Eobard Thawne is removed from the timeline, and he's able to like do whatever he wants in the past, and then return to the future to see the results.
So he's basically a separate entity.
Yeah, they imply that. But then the way Season 1 and as far as I'm considered, they handled time travel exceptionally well in Season 1 until the finale. So one of the main characters of Season 1 was Eddie Thawne, who is Eobard Thawne's distant ancestor.
I do want to say that, like, in Flash, there are some times when they can't be removed from that timeline because they come from a completely different Earth.
Yeah, like Harry or HR. Anyway, before I get off topic here. So Eddie Thawne, in the finale of Season 1, in order to stop Eobard Thawne, who's, for all intents and purposes, winning, shoots himself. And by shooting himself, Eobard just kind of, like, vanishes from existence.
Which wouldn't be a problem if he was removed from the timeline.
No, he wouldn't, because he's removed from the timeline.
Yeah.
But by letting this happen, you're telling the viewer that time is just a mess. Because if Eddie Thawne dies, that means all of Season 1 of The Flash technically would not have happened because Eobard Thawne wouldn't exist to go kill the Flash.
And
I feel
we
like
have just entered...
We just entered a grandfather paradox.
And I do feel like he could go back in time and stop him from killing himself.
Exactly.
We entered the grandfather paradox instead if the grandfather decided to shoot himself.
So I gave it a sure, though. Like, Season 1 was fantastic. As much as me as a viewer, I mean, we're not called the crumbs on the carpet for no reason. We're here to complain about crumbs on the carpet. We're nitpicking random narratives. But at the same time, I gave it a sure. I was like, I'm okay with this. Season 1 was great. They left a nice little loophole, or not loophole, a nice bridge to Season 2. The characters were cool. Every character was involved. It was interesting. It was fun to watch, as much as I hated that one little plot. Then Season 2 comes around, and Season 2 was also very fantastic. So Season 2 happens. Everything's kind of cool. Like, it was a great season, don't get me wrong. But then they would introduce this weird concept that becomes, honestly, the bane of The Flash when it comes to time travel. Time remnants. So they encounter a version of Eobard Thawne from before the version of Eobard Thawne that went back in time initially to kill the Flash's mom. Yeah.
So they're like...
That reminds me of Kingdom Hearts all too much.
So...
Oh god, the
so
time
wait,
travel
are
in
they
that.
pretty much like... Are they... So this is like from... I have never watched The Flash. So this is, I would say, a question. So are they pretty much acting as, I would say, memories of...
They are basically...
Are they memories?
The way they phrase it.
time?
I feel like it's more...
Or are they just different entities?
I feel like it's more leftovers from the last timeline.
So they actually exist. They're just... That is confusing. That is heavily confusing.
And it doesn't honestly get any better. So the way they phrase it is that because he existed in the Speed Force being the method of transit between universes apparently, at this point in time he was protected from changes in the timeline. So the Speed Force kind of remembers this version and lets him get to his destination.
So it's like a saved copy.
It's kind of like a saved copy of him. That's the
It's your
Speed
save file.
Force. Yeah. It's really convoluted. It's really stupid because, like, if Eddie never existed, no version of Eobard Thawne existed. Then Season 3 comes. So that was the Eobard Thawne thing with the time remnant. That was one episode of Season 2. It's fine. I gave it a sure, shrugged it off, left it alone. Then Season 3 comes. The main villain is Savitar, who they later reveal is a time remnant of Barry Allen, our protagonist, who's now emo. Like, he's super depressed, or not depressed, that's the wrong word, and that's also, like, offensive to depressed people.
He's very sad.
he's really sad and angry, and he's wanting to kill Barry Allen.
So he becomes an angsty teen.
Angsty teen, that's the word. So his main purpose in his existence currently, at first, is to kill Iris, who is Barry Allen's wife. Because reasons?
Why do you want to kill your wife?
Wait. So is this basically just a time remnant of Barry who's just jealous?
Basically. The way they imply it is that him and the Flash both survived the final battle with the Big Bad. I think the Big Bad that he implied that he was fighting was Savitar himself. So Barry was supposed to create a time remnant to help him fight Barry, which I'm using time remnant in this statement to imply a Speed Force clone. So he goes back in time a second to join his current self.
He's creating a time remnant to fight a time remnant.
Basically. But in the original timeline in which Savitar existed... See, this is already getting confusing. In the original timeline in which Savitar is from, they didn't know he was a time remnant. But yeah, Barry Allen creates a clone of Barry Allen. We'll just call him just Savitar. We'll just say he's Baby Savitar. So Barry Allen creates Baby Savitar to fight normal Savitar, wins, but then the team kind of just shrugs off Baby Savitar, even though he survives. They treat him like he doesn't exist. So he decides, I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to kill Iris for some reason, because I'm evil.
This does sound a lot like what happened in Timebreaker.
That makes, personally, this from my perspective, this makes almost no sense. Because wouldn't he then know that the outcome anyways is going to be him getting beat by Baby Savitar?
Exactly.
So that makes no sense.
And that's after they can never figure... The one thing I will give them credit for is there was a speech Savitar gave where he was like, the thing about time travel is the more you do it, the more it does, that the rules don't apply to you. And I'm like, that's cool, I get that. But none of this makes any sense, so I kind of need it to make sense. I can't suspend my disbelief entirely.
So
now that I've taken 5 minutes to describe my biggest pet peeve in time travel currently, does anyone else have improper uses that they want to describe?
Well, I brought up Timebreaker in Miraculous.
Ladybug. So the summary of Ladybug is Hawkmoth, the main villain, has these abilities to give other people abilities. So be that if you're a good Hawkmoth, you can make superheroes. If you're a bad Hawkmoth, you make bad ones. So you make villains. And he's a villain in this case. So one of the villains he creates is Timebreaker, because what happened is her watch was broken. Alex, the girl, has an heirloom, and it is broken by someone else, so she blames these people, and she
doesn't blame the right person.
She becomes akumatized, which is where she becomes the bad guy, essentially. And her ability is time travel, which goes along with her heirloom. And so she wants to time travel to fix her heirloom, but she has to go about it with using her roller skates, which is what makes her able to time travel. So it's very similar to the Flash and being able to travel back based on speed.
But she also has to touch people to get the years left in them.
So it's like sucking time out of people to go back further in time. And there's not really any clearly defined rules for it. She's just kind of told, do this and you can have this. That's essentially Hawkmoth's whole thing. Do this for me and you can have this. So
in every episode, he just asks for one thing. And of course, it doesn't work out. But,
And in this case, it was that.
So an improper use, I feel like, is the Time Turner from Harry Potter. So if you've never watched Harry Potter, well, alright, let's get through this. Basically, wizards...
If you haven't watched Harry Potter...
Oh,
come on, man.
Passive aggressiveness to 100%.
Read Harry Potter.
Or read.
Let's assume if people are watching or listening to this podcast, they know something about pop culture.
Yes.
Let's give our fans a little bit of
Wizards go to school.
Yeah.
So, by the way, hi, I'm Jonathan. I showed up here.
Secret guest again. So she gets so in the third book, she gets a magical device that lets her go travel.
That's Prisoner of Azkaban, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That allows her to travel back in time for pretty much as long as she flicks the little...
It's like a gyroscope, right?
Yeah, it's a gyroscope. And the rules is that so long as someone's touching her, she goes back in time, yada, yada, yada. And it's necessary for the plot to basically wrap up what's all been happening shenanigan-wise.
How do you not accidentally turn it?
I have no idea, actually, because that thing is on a gyroscope. But anyways, so she goes back in time. But you're never given a reason. You're never given, like we said, big on rules. Never reason why she had. Well, you're given a reason why she has it. It's so that she can take extra classes. But the rules are you shouldn't touch stuff. You shouldn't meddle with time. Yet this man, the professor, head professor, gives a young girl
who shouldn't have this responsibility to begin with.
I don't care that she's the smartest kid in school.
She's like 11.
Yeah, you don't give the smartest kid in school a Glock.
She's like 13 in that movie.
Yeah, she's aged a couple.
Even
years
more
at that
egregious
point.
though than all of that. Because I have the opposite feeling on the time turn. I think it was a proper use, kind of. It was a closed time like curve. That's what it was. All the rules were. We were not told the rules.
Yes.
That being said, like everything happened. Like you see, like the big stag Patronus.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And then later you find out it was Harry that shot the Patronus. Like everything. The universe has already compensated for the actions of the time travel.
Yes.
Yes, it's already
And
compensated.
that's what we were even talking about.
Have you already touched on Doctor Who's like paradoxes resolve themselves?
We'll get.
There is an improper use of time travel in this game, Mystic Messenger, I feel, because they don't really classify it as time travel. But there is one character that will remember that you've gone through other routes, pretty much. And he will bring it up. You won't really notice it unless you're looking for it. And he's one of those break the fourth wall constantly characters.
Oh, that was there was this would fall into more like proper use. Is that there was a splinter there was a manga I was reading called Hitman Reborn. And one of the characters has this ability where he has a bazooka, he shoots himself with it, and he swaps he's like 11, or more like 6, his 6-year-old self with his I think 18 to 20-year-old self, and it's revealed that later on some guy gets a hold of these, just some random nerd. And each time he goes back in time, he's like, all right, I'm going to try and change my future. Each time he does this, he's creating a separate timeline. He's creating a different... So
it's a multiversal time travel system. That's just clean.
Yeah.
And Mystic Messenger's the same way.
And one character...
Except for this one character that you were talking about.
Well, yeah. And the way it works, though, is that you also remember, technically, because you're the player.
Yeah.
But, like, every time you go with another route, you completely change the story. Like, it changes majorly.
And the one character in... And long story short, let's just establish that the reason why this one timeline is more special is because there's only one certain set of power... Like, let's say Infinity Stones, just for this sake. So one set of Infinity Stones that don't exist in all the other ones. So one of the characters that the guy meets throughout the time, he starts... that he consistently meets throughout each of the timelines. He starts remembering all the other times he met him. And eventually this goes to a point to where all versions of this one guy remember each other.
It's almost like an Undertale.
Yes.
Like Sans remembers everything.
Well, it's not like that. It's more along the lines of each one knows what the other one knows to precise T. It's pretty much that they're all now one person. It becomes a hive mind of just time.
That sounds convoluted and weird.
Yeah,
that's actually a lot more like Kingdom Hearts. Honestly,
yeah, Kingdom Hearts gets.
Yeah, I'm not gonna derail. I wanted to pose the question, and I don't think we should go into it, but just yes or no. Is Undertale multiple universes, or is Undertale going back in time every time you restart?
It's going back.
My implication is like my headcanon is that you're going back in time every time you restart.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it
even shows that there are some things you can't reverse, especially if you go through the bad ending and then go through the good ending, like the pacifist route. It shows that you went through the bad ending.
It is pretty much. It is pretty much made explicit that it's time travel when you go and talk to Sans. He tells you about stuff, and then you just keep on saving, then going back and talking to him. To where you get the information you need.
It just shows that some things are irreversible.
Yeah.
So, I guess the biggest problem I have with the improper use and it being wrong would go back to, I keep mentioning Kingdom Hearts because it's on my forefront. I've been playing Birth by Sleep, which is our prologue that came after, 2 or 3 games. And it's already convoluted because there's like 7 games and
There's a new one coming out, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's 3. And
3 is coming out
3
soon.
is coming out, even though there's like 8 of them.
Yeah.
7 or 8 of them. So,
well, I think it's 3 because it's branching off of the original.
It's branching off of 1, 2, then 3, but there's still like 7 or 8
even
games
though there's
out,
other
not
games
counting
in that
mobile games and
timeline.
stuff. But point being is you have this one character, Xehanort, and essentially his role is to just use all of his selves. So it's multi-dimensional, I guess, and because it has multiple universes, obviously. That's the point of it, to travel to different worlds. And to travel to different universes is not let on that you know that there are other places that you can travel.
I
Even
wouldn't
though you
say
end up
different
saying stuff
universes, cause each one, like, each world is connected. They're not different universes, you're just going to...
But they think they are.
Yeah.
They treat them as
think
though they're separate. Because the only people able to travel are the ones that have the Keyblades.
Yes.
So I should have said this. I should have talked about this in defining rules. So the difference between timelines and universes. Usually it doesn't come up. I think the only time I've ever really seen it come up in recent memory is The Flash, in which there are other universes as well as the speedsters being able to create other timelines, apparently. It's complicated. But there is, like, a distinct difference between a timeline and a universe. So, referencing that, like, would you say it's a timeline or a universe?
Birth
Well,
by
the
Sleep
thing, the
does mess with the timeline a bit.
Well, the problem I was getting at is, yes, they're all in the same one universe, but it is still multiverse because there are like 13 Xehanort.
But
they all come from different time periods, but also different dimensions.
There's also the issue
so it's
of...
multidimensional.
There's also the issue of the dimension of nothing in between.
So like an Aether kind of thing.
It's a void. It's a
like
void.
an MT, like in Magic the Gathering's like storyline.
It's so,
Blind Eternity.
it's so convoluted that unless you literally read everything, and
no, you have to play all the games.
You play it, read
everything,
everything, and you still don't understand half of it.
Then
that's
that's
usually how it goes, and it's problematic because they're just trying to fix their own problems and creating more. So, like in 3D, they reveal that nobodies have. They reveal that nobodies, which are people that we think that didn't have hearts. They reveal that they have hearts when you go back in time. Okay, so they really have hearts, and this has been a thing this whole time, and you're just now telling
the main
us.
Bad guy are heartless.
Yes.
So you've been killing our nobodies.
Well,
like crazy,
and nobodies.
Right? Like you killed some nobodies.
Yes.
You don't kill the ones that look human. Well, I mean you do, but.
So what you're telling me is that Sora's a murderer.
Yes.
That's the point. Like you wait all this time, and then you reveal this stuff because you're trying to cover up your mistakes and your missteps.
Riku and Sora
maybe it could
genocide.
be proper if it's properly explained, but I find it to be improper and painful.
Just from pulling from like popular media things, I think. I think that I have a proper use. I like how they use it in Doctor Who, where it's just like it's part of the plot, and that paradoxes resolve themselves. Like,
well, since you're bringing up proper use, let's just move on to like
proper
medias that we think used it properly.
Yes.
And you can go ahead and continue your thought with Doctor Who.
So Doctor Who, the plot is based around time travel, time and space. That's his whole thing. Wibbly wobbly, blah blah blah.
Well, I mean,
you should
even
know it by now.
Like the Weeping Angels use time travel primarily to eat.
Weeping Angels are creatures that only move when you're not looking at them, and they feast on
potential future.
What is essentially time remnants, like when they mess with your future and then they feed on like what you could have done and all the sort of things.
I mean,
but anyways,
they could just create an infinite food supply off of one person.
We don't know how much they eat.
And at the same time, like, we're told that they are implicitly evil.
I mean, is a creature evil if it's just trying to survive?
Not really, but at the same time, we're literally, like, the Doctor literally tells us they're implicitly just evil. So, then again, the Doctor can't really be trusted either.
So can we talk about this in another podcast?
We can, I guess.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about time travel, and
I know.
The time travel podcast seems like a pretty good spot for Doctor Who.
Well, I'm just saying if a creature is implicitly evil.
Oh, yes, that. Well, anyways, but yeah, so, like, the Doctor Who's excuse for, like, I can go back in time and do whatever I want, and, like, whenever, like, there's an episode, I forget the episode now, because I'm not well prepared. They just ask, like, what about a scientist that asks him, like, what about the paradoxes? He's like, oh, they resolve themselves. Shut up. I'm the Doctor.
So
the episode Angels Take Manhattan, they have to use a paradox to get out of that.
Well, yes.
Hang on. Before, like, because Weeping Angels are interesting and all, but I think, like, that goes kind of a different way for what we're talking about. But going to proper uses of time travel, or Doctor Who as a reference with the whole, like, paradoxes resolve themselves. So this is a point where I would be considering it an improper use. Okay. Because that's one of those things that the writer looked at the rules that they've established early on and said, nah. Because literally, in the 9th Doctor season, there's an episode where Rose Tyler saves her dad from getting hit by a car, I think that's what it is. And it releases, like, the time, like, bat things, the time roaches. They come to fix the universe by eating everything.
Yeah, I don't like those in any story that they've ever used those in. Like,
they're also in The Flash.
I know, I was about to mention, I hate when they show up in The Flash. It's like, shut up, no.
It's like the weird guys in Rick and Morty that just...
Yep, the brains in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
So, like, my opinion on time travel, and we were actually... I was having this conversation with somebody earlier today, is that when you go back in time travel and you create a new timeline, you live in that timeline and your timeline is gone. And you cannot get back to it.
It's not exactly gone in a lot of different cases. It's just the completely separate timeline that branches from the main one.
That's what I'm saying. Your timeline...
It's gone too.
It becomes the real timeline.
Yes.
It becomes, like, I know Barick is supposed to introduce this, but, like, Life is Strange, it creates that alternate timeline, and basically the other one is deleted because it never happened. It doesn't exist.
And that's a mono-universal system in which the user of time travel, the time traveler, is removed from the timeline and is able to do whatever they want. That's an example of that. But there's no paradoxical implications because you're told as a viewer to give that a sure. So even further, like in season 2 of Doctor Who, there's another example where like the Master uses or cannibalizes the TARDIS to create a paradox engine to not. There's just complicated stuff.
Never seen a man eat a.
So like, go ahead, Barry.
I was gonna say I never seen a man eat a police box.
Is it really considered cannibalizing it?
Well, I use the word cannibalizing because, like, as someone who builds computers and stuff, like, you can cannibalize a machine and rebuild something new out of it.
It means, like, ripping out all the guts and just turning
So, yeah, I mean, like, and that's the unfortunate part about writing a show for 50 years. Even if...
no writers are going to... And that's one thing comic books have been dealing with for years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, my friend, Miss Sarah, has brought...
Your friend, as you look at her, like, glaringly,
I'm joking.
That was my job to introduce Life is
It
Strange.
just fit.
Darn you.
I think I stole somebody's thunder, too, so I'm sorry.
It's okay. No one can steal my thunder.
Everyone's stealing your thunder.
Anyway, so Life is Strange is a video game that I like. It's a video game. It's much more closer to like a narrative and more about choice decisions. Long story short, you're based around a girl named Max. She's a very plain girl. She is extremely plain.
Boring.
Yes, she is.
Plain Jane.
She can time travel. How is that boring?
No.
She starts boring is what we're saying.
Yes, she has. I hate. I'm not gonna say she has no personality, but it's a matter of she's quiet. She doesn't.
She's a wet dish towel.
Yes, she doesn't interface with anything. The only thing that you know.
She's a flat character.
Yes, the only thing you know about her is that she likes writing in her diary and she likes taking pictures. This is the one thing you know.
So you're a teenage girl today. Got it.
Yes. Anyways, so what happens is that she eventually discovers she has the ability to time travel. I feel like this is a proper use simply because of the fact you're giving rules not by explicitly stating it. Not like some people are like, yeah, you can't do this, you can't do this. It's a matter of you learn as you go. Max finds out that if she tries to travel back in time further than 5 seconds, she starts pretty much dying.
I will say it is best to have it where they learn and not just have somebody explicitly state it.
Yes.
Simply because if somebody's explicitly stating it, you know that they've broken rules.
Yes. And then another thing she learns off is that she has the ability to go through pictures and then actually to go further back in time and then change the outcome. However, she does this, she completely rewrites the history. She more or less enters a different universe, which we've already gone over.
She blew
Or it's a new timeline.
It's a new timeline. It's a brand new timeline. She then can fix it as she wants. She can literally just completely go back in time and fix it, no repercussions. She actually one time goes into the past. She uses a picture to go back in time. Then goes.
Oh, I remember that. It's like
it was a mind.
The turducken timeline.
Yes.
She's blue skidooing. That's what I was trying to think about what it was.
Near the end, it's basically implied that she's already rewritten the timeline. The moment that she got her powers, she rewrote it. And it's up to her to go back and just completely set the timeline back on its course.
So there's rules put in place. The use is consistent, but there's consequences.
The universe itself is trying to fix her problem. Is trying to fix her screw up. It's a kind of a. The universe isn't an entity, but it's like nature itself is trying like. It's
like the ocean, like a wave on the ocean. Well, she is trying to break the wave, and the waves get stronger around her. Yes, because what happens is that the girl that she saved has gotten hurt so many times. She's gotten ran over by a train. She's gotten shot by her own bullet by ricocheting. So it's pretty much you either fix the problem or you kill all these people.
Well, there is a show called Makaku City Actors. It's made up of different songs that are sung by Vocaloids, which is a whole different thing. One of the songs is Heat Haze Days, and in it, this girl just keeps dying, and this one guy is trying to save her, but it just never works, and he keeps on waking up the next day And then even he tries to do it, or he tries to be the one that dies, and then she wakes up the next day. So, and they do this for 10 years because of another guy trying to get this one girl to stay alive. Not him, but a different guy.
One thing I thought of, and it's probably not extremely well known, it's something I read in high school, and I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but I can attempt. I think it was a proper use, at least to me. It was a series called Artemis Fowl, and one book was entirely centered around the time paradox that was created because his mother was supposedly ill, which that is a whole other problem in itself. But he has to go back in time to get this stuff from a lemur because it's gone extinct for 8 years. So they have to go back. And I believe it's proper because they do clearly say, you know, there are certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. Be sure not to mess it up, and then the paradoxes resolve themselves. So, like, what happens is it has fairies and stuff in it, so it has magic, but it has technological magic. So, it's like, very advanced, like...
I don't know, there's, like, fairies and stuff.
So, like, primer on Artemis Fowl real quick, because it is a slightly more obscure high school novel that if you didn't read it in middle school, you probably never will.
No.
It's this genius, slightly evil, mastermind billionaire kid whose parents I thought were dead, but I mean... at the first book, they were not in the picture.
His dad is missing, and they thought I can't remember what was with his mom.
His mother went insane, and long story short, at the end of the first book, he bargains with the main fairy they captured I'll give you half the gold I just stole from you to fix my mother.
So basically, what happens is the first book is he steals gold from the mythical creatures that have been hidden from reality for so long, and since he's a genius,
we're getting way off topic.
Anyway, I'm just trying to add a primer. There's fairies, technology,
the paradox resolves itself because the whole reason all of this happens is because he becomes interested in fairies. And what happens in the paradox is Captain Holly Short, the main fairy, is captured in the past. So that is what starts his interest in fairies. So it's this paradox, but it ends up resolving.
It's not really a paradox so much as it's a closed time-like curve.
Yeah, and the
universe is already compensated.
Well, the actual paradox is the fact that the lemur is no longer extinct, but it really is, and that was the actual one. But the underlying paradox was the resolution of his interest in fairies because of that. But it clearly defines what they can and can't do. It resolves itself. It basically just takes it, uses it for what it's needed, and then leaves it. But, you know, he also does all kinds of other things, like dimension-wise, and that's definitely not.
I have 2 examples of properties of time travel. The first one is a really obscure movie from the early 2000s called Primer, that you just reminded me of, by saying Primer.
Yeah.
So, this movie is one of the most convoluted time travel movies you can get to. It's almost literally designed to where you won't understand it the first time you watch it. That being said, it is the most tightly scientific, most consistent time travel movie you will ever watch. It starts off, the time travel mechanism is a wormhole generator, essentially. So the machine generates a wormhole, you crawl into it, you can only travel to a point in time in which this wormhole has been opened. So, like, if you open the wormhole at 7 a.m., that wormhole, if you go through it in the future, will only take you to 7 a.m. that day.
It's like a checkpoint, pretty much.
Yeah, it's basically they're making a time travel checkpoint. So the movie, like, there's a lot of weird plot points. I highly encourage you to watch it.
Watch it 5 times.
It's really good. So one of the plot points is, like, and if you go to Wikipedia, there's actually, like, a picture of the, like, diagram of the time travel working.
So, I know you really love Mr. Nobody. Does that involve time travel?
Mr. Nobody does not include time travel.
Okay, because I thought it would, because the way you described it.
It's weird. Well, I don't want to get to it. I don't want to get into it. Yeah, well, that's another podcast topic. But going back to Primer, so, like, the person will start up the time machine, research stocks and bonds, wait for the end of the day to see, like, the latest, or the end of the day NASDAQ, whatever, then hop in the portal and make investments accordingly. And there's a lot of drama in this movie, and it's really good. The rules are set in place, everything's consistent, because you overwrite the timeline upon setting out of it. Now, that does imply that if you do anything too big, after the moment you get out of the time machine, you could undo existence. a la, have y'all ever read A Sound of Thunder, the Ray Bradbury story, where it's like people are hunting dinosaurs, and they on purpose go out and hunt dinosaurs that are about to die, and they get the bullet out, and this guy steps on a butterfly, and it makes everyone angry in the future.
Butterfly effect. That's where
Basically the butterfly effect.
Yeah, don't you hate it when you put in too much money, then you accidentally undo all of existence?
Yep. The other example of proper use of time travel that I want to get to, and I'm using this loosely when it comes to proper because there's a couple loopholes in how they use it that's proper that it becomes improper. One of my favorite movies of all time, I watched it when I was a kid. It probably sparked my interest in time travel. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Radical.
One of Keanu Reeves' first movies. I can't remember the other guy because he kind of disappeared from existence after the sequel. But anyway.
You can get a really good rundown of it with that one Family Guy episode where they take Chris in the past to learn about it.
No, we're not. Stop the Family Guy.
You can't help it. There's a lot of
the main characters are Bill and Theodore, or Bill and Ted, clearly, because it's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They're given a time machine by this guy, Rufus, I think his name was, who's played by George Carlin.
Love George Carlin.
Apparently, their music, it creates world peace, but something's happening that makes it where their ability to become a band is in jeopardy, and it's like a history report where they could split them up forever. Like one of their dads is going to send them to military boot camp or something. Off that, Rufus gives them basically the TARDIS. It's literally a American call box or a phone booth that can go anywhere in the universe, and they recruit historical figures to give their presentation or whatever. It's hilarious. It's a weird movie that everyone should see because it's hilarious. But there's a point in the movie where they get like put in a holding cell. To escape it, they're like, wouldn't it be cool if if we ever get the time travel booth again, if we put the keys right here? And then they look, the keys are there.
So what you're saying is that they already have the compensation.
Well, they already are like, we know we're going to get to the time machine eventually. Let's just remember to put these things here. So they create a closed time-like curve to ensure that they're able to get out of the holding booth and go to give their history presentation.
Power of will.
Exactly. It's like
it's the confirmation. Like if I ever invent time travel, I will be here. And then
exactly.
You don't show up, so you know you didn't invent time travel.
No, you didn't invent it though.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, these are just a few proper uses where rules are established, there's consequences, it's consistent, it makes sense. We've talked about proper and improper use. Is there ever a situation in which improper use is okay? And I kind of want to start this off, personally. Back to the Future. Back to the Future is one of the worst time travel movies ever. If you're talking about just time travel.
It's a good movie.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of the best movies of all time. But it does the same thing The Flash does. Only it does it in a way that's a lot more subtle.
They use a DeLorean.
Less complex.
Less complex. Literally, you just get in the car and you go backwards.
Yeah.
But then they imply that like you can undo your existence despite the fact that you exist independently, and then despite the fact that you can actually still change the future.
Then there's
also
like
the fact
you
that
probably died multiple times.
Also the fact that like the step on a butterfly effect, they just like, no, that doesn't exist. We're gonna like drastically change everything about your future, but only like 2 or 3 things will be different when you get back.
And you're fine when you get back. Yeah,
that's fine. You can
like
go
you
and
also
be with
still
your
exist.
mom.
Well,
the same way.
well, at the same time, we're not privy to everything that changed. We only see like 5 minutes after he gets back to the future.
The universe is not destroyed.
You can join your mom in a car.
You can almost like
you can cause your mom almost to get
pregnant by you.
Raped by
it's
a bully.
Weird. Yeah.
And then influence your dad to beat him up.
But anyway, the movie is fantastic. So the movie itself makes up for the time travel plot holes. Another example I will give is, again, we talked about Doctor Who as a proper use. And then I retorted that I think it's actually improper use because writers changing things. I actually think Doctor Who is an acceptable improper use because the very premise of the show is the Doctor's going around history and changing stuff. Unless it's a frozen point in time, or what was it called? I can't remember.
A fixed point.
Fixed point, because I haven't watched Doctor Who in years. That's another issue in which, like, the time travel's not really clearly defined. We know that paradoxes are a thing, but they're not really a thing because he still goes and changes things. It's only a direct paradox if he like encounters himself or some weird crap. But it's a fantastic show that works.
Well,
despite the plot holes.
Supernatural also has some time travel where it's okay, but...
Well, the past time travel in Supernatural has all been CTCs, closed time-like curves.
Well,
Dean going back in time
angels
caused...
will completely erase what happened.
Exactly.
Or-
There is the implication that the angels are making sure that time's okay.
I feel like improper use, appropriate improper use, pretty decent in terms of getting over when time travel is the focus of the story generally.
Yeah.
Simply because that's kind of how.
At the same time, that way it is very improper due to the fact that it is the focus. Therefore, there are rules that need to be completely just not focused on.
Yeah, I know for me, now this is one I just recently got tossed into in the middle of season 2 because, as I mentioned earlier, my dad has been watching Legends of Tomorrow, and it's really good. It's sometimes hard to follow, but because of the hard to follow, because it is hard to follow, it does have some improper things, some unexplained things, but it does it and creates the story so well that I think it makes it acceptable in the end. And that's without, basically telling you that they break time and all other kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, season 2 ends with time just shattered.
But
that's
when you learn about the time police.
Yeah, in season 3. I firmly agree. Legends is awful with time travel, but it's okay because of the nature of the show. It's even in the same universe as The Flash, with the same rules as The Flash, but they've added their own rules to it because they're not using the Speed Force to time travel.
I feel like the time police themselves make it proper.
Well, no, not at all.
Yeah, no, I hate any show that uses time police, time harpies, time villains.
Except for there was Time Patrol, and I think it was what it's called on Cartoon Network, where the main character is a time patrol agent. Yeah. And they're not using time wraiths or anything. Yeah. It's like a police department made of people with time travel stuff that decide
from the future.
Yeah,
but what about the Time Force?
I think, but I think what makes it acceptable in this case is because it's supposed to be messy. It's supposed to not have loose ends tied off. It's supposed to be one of those things of, well, what if? It's supposed to be that way.
I feel it's due to the nature of the narrative. So The Flash is meant to be taken seriously. Or at least the writers make you feel like it's meant to be taken seriously. Occasionally there's some comedic bits. It's fine.
Legends of Tomorrow has a lot more comedic.
Legends of Tomorrow knows what kind of show it is. It knows it's the lighthearted, let's go have fun time traveling show.
We weren't the superheroes, but we were the second best. So
exactly.
This is why we're here.
They were handpicked by Rip Hunter because they have no impact on the future.
Again, Family Guy. They have that episode where they go back to the pilot. It's actually called Back to the Pilot, and the whole thing just ends with them from multiple different times that they've messed up, just coming back, and then there's a whole congregation of Stewie and Brian's, and they have to take a vote on what to do, and it's all messy, but it's improper in how it's used if you're taking it seriously, but they know not that the show isn't taken seriously.
And then, so my parents have been watching this show called Timeless, where the whole show centers around people going and chasing after this villain who's trying to mess up time, but by chasing down the villain, they're messing up time worse. So, there's a part where, the villain is actually trying to get the Zeppelin to crash and kill a bunch of people, and the heroes are like, oh, well, we can't let him kill a bunch of people. Well, the Zeppelin's actually supposed to crash. And so they end up causing the Zeppelin to land, and every time they chase down this time villain, quote-unquote, who's, doing things that are supposed to happen anyways, they end up messing up the timeline.
So that's a CTC, and it's trying to be a CTC, but because of the nature of the show, it's not.
Correct.
But it still makes the show interesting.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's acceptable in proper use, where, sure, you can let this bad guy go back and assume that he is the reason that these things happen, or you can be like a TV show with good guys and bad guys, both
Better
of them,
clear cut,
and try to stop him and assume time works itself out, which it doesn't, because they keep going back to a worse and worse future.
Okay, so before we sign off, I want to have a quick closing discussion. So I think the Legends thing, talking about Legends of Tomorrow, just had, the epiphany there that I had for a second, and I want if you guys have other takes or other things to say, or if you agree or disagree. I think the nature of the narrative in question has a huge impact on whether or not it's okay to use bad logic.
Well, bad logic.
I'm skipping time travel entirely for this. Just bad logic.
Bad logic for a lot of comedic things. If your logic is bad, it can lead to more comedic situations, so you want to use it. But if it's a serious thing, don't use use bad logic because, again, it'll lead to a more comedic situation anyway.
I mean, I will agree, bad logic is always hilarious. It's
not always hilarious.
Well,
Sometimes
I would
it's
say
just,
always.
like,
I would
distracting.
say,
Sometimes it's just stupid.
yeah,
Yeah.
scratch it. I should have said rather.
It's meant to be humorous.
Yes,
is
bad
what I think
logic
you
when
meant.
used appropriately. I also enjoy when good logic is used, but the turnout, like for example, when good logic is used to enter a to enter a stupid, i.e. the like Monty Python's duck.
Yeah.
Because he used sound logic, but.
Does anyone else have any input on that? On like the nature of a narrative making.
Yeah.
So I love proper use of time travel, and I love it when serious things have proper use. But the moment they use improper time travel, like say the Flash, it's like I said, the Flash wants you to take it seriously. But by doing so and using bad logic with their time travel, it invalidates the entire narrative if you're critical.
Well, Miraculous in their time travel episode, like the show itself, it wants you to kind of take it seriously, but it's more meant for kids, so it doesn't want to be too serious, and they keep it from being too serious. So,
I would consider it a little more serious, considering they make people disappear and you think they're dead.
yeah.
So like,
But she goes back in time and she fixes it all with another copy of herself. It's all weird.
I totally agree with Justin on the what is your show about? How do you want your show to feel? Like Primer, totally a scientific show. It starts out with these people in a garage trying to build a startup, working on motherboards. You can tell that this is a scientific movie and they want to take a very serious take on it.
And if I remember correctly, like the actual dialogue, you have to actually kind of have some kind of foreknowledge
Yeah.
to actually understand what they're even talking about.
Like they don't hold punches here. They want you to know these are very smart. These are smart people. These are people who know what they're doing, but they don't. They're just now trying to understand time travel, and there's a very serious take on it. However, in Legends, they're like, oh yeah, we're not.
We just have a spaceship that can time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
And we're not sure what we're doing.
No.
I think the when to use improper is very much like whether or not improper is appropriate or inappropriate is based upon, or acceptable rather, is based upon the tone and I would say the plot of the movie overall. Like you can
Like the plot pretty much decides if it's proper or improper anyway.
Yes. For example, Back to the Future, we've already gone over about how it was improper and how it was improper use of time, but because the plot made up for it. If you're going to use it improperly, you better have something to make up for it. Or
Exactly.
You
Like,
better have a
it's like I
reason
saw
for...
like season 1 of Flash. I gave it a sure, the bad use. I was just like, sure.
You just have to be able to back it up with enough to where it sounds like it. It makes
like
sense.
build up
or is
your
okay.
suspension of disbelief.
Flash to me was like I don't give that a sure. To me, Flash, and I came in on this late, so this is my take on Flash. Quick take. It takes itself way too seriously to use time so frivolously. Frivolously. Thank you.
And I agree. I agree entirely on that. Like, they actually need better logic. They honestly need better writers, but I'm not going to...
That'll be edited out.
Yeah, that's not going to be edited out. You hear me, Flash writers. You suck. Who brings in Eminet Black? Anyway.
Also, who uses Savitar as a villain, but...
Well, Savitar was a villain.
He was a villain, but he was a garbage villain, and then they ruined how garbage he was with adding
Even more garbage.
Dude,
Yeah.
he's
Let's just pile
Patel.
more garbage on top of garbage.
He's Patel from Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, God.
be careful now. We may end up have Flash in the Mafia after us.
Alright, Scott Pilgrim's next podcast. Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I think we're all done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we are the Crumbs on the Carpet podcast. If you want to email us, our email is crumbsonthecarpet2018@gmail.com. If you want to talk to any specific member, my Twitter is @Justin27M. I don't know if any of y'all want to plug y'all stuff.
Don't talk to me on social
I'm a
media.
crazy old hermit.
My Instagram, this is Sarah, is @Sarah_the_starlight.
Mine is @MadScientist369.
And then, Barick, if you got anything, I don't know if you do or not, if you want to plug it.
Do you exist?
Barick, do you exist on the internet?
Actually, I am
does.
actually a ghost recording. I'm
All
sorry.
right,
I'm...
all right, you're dead.
Yeah. Good luck finding me on the internet. If you do, I'll block you.
God, John. Anyway, we are the Crumbs on the Carpet podcast, and we're signing off.
See you in a flash.
See ya.